Good morning, friends. Today we're at the press preview of the Philadelphia Flower Show to take a sneak peek of the show before it opens to the public. This year, the theme of the flower show is Rooted, Origins in American Gardening. I love that this year's theme honors the men and women who planted the love of gardening in our hearts. Whether your passion for plants and flowers came from a grandparent, a colleague, a friend, or a neighbor, I'm sure we can all agree that plant people are the best people. So grab a cup of rose petal tea and a homemade lavender scone, and let's look around together. Let's start here at the entrance garden, where flower-covered spheres sit on top of twisting twig pedestals. Perhaps these pedestals are meant to be roots coming out of the ground. The spheres are covered in roses, lisianthus, and hydrangeas. Some were peach and lime, while others were purple, pink, and white. Below the flowering spheres there was a meadow of muscari, foamflower, and daisies, backed up by myrtle topiaries. 3 towering, weeping conifers grounded the center of the garden and reminded me of the ruined garden at Chanticleer. As I rounded the corner, I was greeted by miniature daffodils and more dusty pink foamflower. Each sphere is more beautiful than the next, but I think the one with the peach roses, lime green hydrangeas, and dusty pink hydrangeas is my personal favorite. The next garden had it all: homemade arches adorned with dried flowers, water features, floating florals, bonsais, and flowering bulbs. Oh, be still, my flower-loving heart. 3 unique floating flower arrangements sat underneath a canopy of 2 intersecting arches that were dressed in preserved roses, dried eucalyptus, bougainvillea, spray-painted hydrangeas, and dyed baby's breath. One of the floating arrangements was decked out in blazing star and orchids, and all 3 were enjoying a light drizzle from a water feature above. Azalea and pine bonsais sat on top of rock pedestals. Hyacinths, daffodils, and alliums were in a deciduous forest backdrop, and another grand archway filled with flowers led you from this garden to the next one, called the forest floor. This appeared to be the largest garden in the entire convention center, and it reminded me of Monty Don's spring garden, where he has lots of low-growing, spring-blooming plants set underneath a sea of deciduous trees. The early hellebores, daffodils, and spring ephemerals shine in March and April, but seemingly disappear in summer when the trees leaf out and shade out the garden below. Now this garden featured birch trees whose canopies had been removed. Below the trees there were hellebores, tulips, native phlox, foxglove, and pitcher plants. Small pools of water surrounded by moss gave a serene feel to the space, and I loved the subtle, practical stone pathways that wove throughout the garden. Now let's head under this hanging floral display where they've suspended amaryllis, monstera leaves, amaranth, and orchids from bamboo canes. Welcome to the most beautiful dinner party you've ever seen. This table is all flowers and no food, and I feel okay about it. 2 living frames adorned with air plants, moth orchids, and roses flank the entrance and exit to this exquisite flower-filled banquet. I love their use of bold colors, big flowers, and creative handmade details. Pairing the rusty orange orchids, purple alliums, fuchsia carnations, and red roses together was a bold choice, and it definitely worked. Magnolia seed pods were displayed under glass cloches. Handmade balls were encrusted in acorns. Sticks were used in place of candles, and hellebores wrapped in pink linen napkins added whimsy to this larger-than-life floral display. This tablescape reminded me of Kiana Underwood's wedding work. She's always fearless when it comes to color, and this display embraced all the vibrant hues that nature has to offer. Behind the table, there were log stepping stones leading to an antique settee where a long log served as a footrest. This lovely hideaway was under an iron arch where suspended metal butterflies flew above you. The next display combined two of my favorite things, theater and flowers. Jennifer Reed of Jennifer Designs created a full-size mock-up of London's Old Globe Theatre, where many of William Shakespeare's plays premiered. Her display is a play, and at random times during the flower show, a curtain drops over the stage, and the floral figures and props are rearranged throughout 3 narrative scenes. They loosely tell the story of Romeo and Juliet, played out by a sunflower and a rose, lovers from opposite sides of a flower field. This display had an amazing array of flowers, bunches of roses, loads of lisianthus, tons of tulips, scores of stock. Even the theater seats were surrounded by floating florals, some fresh and some dried, with a rainbow of fresh blooms in front of the seats for the audience to enjoy. I would pay an arm and a leg to watch a real play in this theater and would never want to leave. Here is Robinson's Flowers display. This landmark Chestnut Hill florist has been in business for a century. It first opened in 1927 and has been in the same location on Germantown Avenue since 1951. Their Windows into the Past display showcases period floral arrangements from different decades. Please help me identify the decade as we go around this display. I'm assuming that the dusty pink arrangements are the current day. The next window used only white flowers and was dripping in jewels and feathers. Perhaps this is the early 2000s? What do you think? The window with a large arrangement filled with gladiolas, yarrow, roses, and snapdragons reminded me of the floral designs that my grandma used to make. So I'm assuming we're looking at a window from the 1990s. Rounding the corner, I saw a beautiful bouquet of lavender lisianthus nestled in a bed of ferns and snake plants. It was clear that this window took us back to the 60s. There was a peace sign crafted from folded leaves, succulents, and mosses. Lava lamps, moss balls, and a flower crown made from straw flowers sat on the floor, while a macrame planter hung from the ceiling. Were Gerber daisies all the rage back in the 60s? There is no mistaking that this window display is from the 80s. I love seeing the green bells of Ireland, yellow billy balls, neon purple orchids, and lavender alliums fearlessly paired together in these designs. This was the only use I saw of fritillaria during the entire show. What decade is this window display? I liked the use of dogwood in the upright floral arrangement, and this desk chair adorned with billy balls and moss gets an A+ for creativity. There are at least a dozen more phenomenal floral designs on the right-hand side of the convention center. But since my time was limited, I headed over to the left-hand side of the convention center to take in this amazing tulip display. I saw some of my favorite tulips, Mystic Van Eyck, Purple Prince, and Columbus. I just love a garden that's only spring bulbs. But I also love a garden that's full of ornamentals, natives, herbs, and bulbs, and this garden had all of those things. It had a beautiful greenhouse on top of a hill with a cascading waterfall in front of the landing. I loved how this garden showcased numerous creative ways to use stone. They had stepping stones surrounded by gravel that led to stairs made out of mid-sized stones. Large boulders created the waterfall and were also tucked into the slope of the land, and simple cement pavers were used as decking. I liked how they planted a few primroses, pansies, and ranunculus amongst the perennial plantings and ground covers. They had crafted a lovely arch from grapevines and inserted dried statice and sea holly into the structure. The plantings consisted of catmint, yarrow, grasses, candytuft, and dogwoods, just to name a few. The window boxes were filled with daffodils, the containers featured a variety of succulents, and the background was planted with an abundance of hyacinths. Let's look at the most creative vegetable garden at the Philadelphia Flower Show, and also what I feel was the most budget-friendly display. This fantastic garden created raised beds and benches from old pallets. They turned bricks into botanical books, watering cans into fountains, old library card catalogs into seed storage, and they even had a bookworm compost bin next to their potting bench. Popular titles at this garden bookshop were Where the Wild Plants Are, Pride and Propagation, The Catcher in the Rosemary, and my personal favorite, War and Peas. They had also used the card catalog doors as plant markers and used an old clipboard to display the menu of edible plants they offered that day. I could have stood in front of this garden for at least an hour and found a new creative use for an old thing every minute. This is only a small selection of what the Philadelphia Flower Show has to offer. If you've never visited the show, I would encourage you to do so. Driving and parking in Philly has its challenges, so if you can take public transportation, I would opt for that. If not, take care to check the vehicle height and width limitations on the nearby garages. I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye, friends.